This week we're looking at 5 awesome chords to use in prog rock and metal. Today is the last chord, the dominant 7 sharp 11 chord. This has the most dissonant sound of all of these 5 chords, but it has a really nice, unique character to it. It's built by adding the sharp 11 to a dominant 7 chord. In A, you'd have A, C sharp, E, G, D sharp. Here's a couple of voicings I like for this chord. This one rooted on the low E string, this one on the A string with the 9th, and these dissonant voicings that are just stacked tritones. Really gross, but very cool. Similar to the major 7 sharp 11 and the minor 6/9 chord, this is a modal chord, but the mode it's taken from is the Lydian dominant mode, which is the 4th mode of melodic minor. In A, that would be this. You can think of this as the more dissonant outside cousin of Lydian. It only has one note different from Lydian. Lydian has a major 7th and Lydian dominant has a minor 7th. So here's Lydian. Here's Lydian dominant. So where would I use this sound? Well, first off, it is a dominant 7th chord at its core, so I can use this in place of any dominant 7th chord. In a 2-5-1 in the key of E, for example, typical jazz progression, I'll replace the B7 with a B7 sharp 11. Here's that basic E minor progression I've been using in all of these lessons. E minor, C, A minor, B7. Let's replace the B7 with a B7 sharp 11 and also some of the other chords we've already talked about. In my song Surface Tension, there's a bar of B7 sharp 11 that leads back to E major. This is treating this like an altered 5 chord in the key of E. The first verse of the Great Stereopticon is actually a 12-bar blues in E minor, and on the turnaround, measures 9 and 10, goes C7 sharp 11 to F7 sharp 11, which are tritone substitutions for a 2-5 in E minor. A 2-5 in E minor would be F sharp, B, and then to E, but I'm going to replace those chords with chords built a tritone away. But in this case, I'm using dominant 7 sharp 11 chords for both of those.
It's better to believe than to kill. Succeed, we will survive. So much easier to die. Did you hear the news today? Did you hear the news today?
And just like the other modal chords I've talked about in these videos, I can treat this one as its own modal sound that's detached from any key signature. In this short fusion thing I put together a few years ago, the main section goes between A Lydian dominant and C Lydian dominant, really leading into the dissonant, unresolved sound of this scale. There's a little chromaticism in the melody as well, which adds even more dissonance. So there are a few ways to use a dominant 7 sharp 11 chord. I'm a big fan of this chord when I want a slightly more outside sound. And that's the last of the 5 chords I'll be covering this week. In the next video, I'll talk about how I combined all of these chord types together in the short piece of music I put out last week. And if you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, comment, share. Till next time, stay proggy.